Is Microsoft's rumored foldable PC that fits in your pocket a little too niche for the market? Today I'll tell you why I don't think it actually matters. Stay tuned. All right, for this week's rant, I just want to talk about a topic that I find really interesting, which is technology. I know it's pretty broad, right? But I want to relate it to this Microsoft device that's rumored to come out later this year. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I've recently seen a lot more about it, stuff that we don't really want to share publicly just yet. Now, all technology starts off as being things that seem really cool, but that are either too expensive or you don't really feel like you need it. For instance, years ago, and I'm going to kind of date myself here, I had a pager. I had a pager in college. And that was because there were no smartphones or cell phones that existed yet, or at least that weren't available to the consumer market. Now, the question was, did I need a pager? No, I was not a drug dealer before you ask. I was also not an EMT, although I did train to be an EMT, which was interesting. And I actually didn't need one of these things, but it was like $7 a month, and I thought it was a cool way to stay in contact with my friends and family as I was away from school. But again, I didn't need that, and a lot of people didn't need a pager. The same thing happened a few years later when cell phones did come out to the market. I was one of the first people to have one in my group of friends and family. And I didn't need it, but it was cool to have. And this also went on and on for things like even a laptop. I remember first seeing a laptop, and they were big and huge and super expensive. At the time, I didn't even have a home PC. And I was just thinking, like, that would be cool to have, but what would you do with it? If you remember, when laptops first came out, they were glorified word processors that you could take with you. There was no internet, there was no way to connect to things, Wi-Fi cards. Wi-Fi barely existed back at that time. So it was kind of a weird thing to even own a laptop because you just couldn't do as much with it. But all of this changed, even smartphones. Back in 2007, I remember when the iPhone came out and people were like, ooh, very excited. But by this point, I've been using a Trio for a few years already and Pocket PCs. And before that, I used a Dell Axum. And all that stuff was very niche. And a lot of my friends and family did not see the point of having those devices. Why email on your phone? Just wait till you get home. Why message? They didn't see the benefits of having a smartphone, but I saw where this stuff was going to be very important. Fast forward to 2018, and it would be weird for you not to have a smartphone. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because everything changes with technology. So when a new device comes out to the market, like I said, you may not need it, and that's totally fine, but it doesn't mean it's a bad device either, or that it can't change. Okay, so let's talk about Project Andromeda a little bit more here, also known as this foldable PC, and what it is specifically. I see a lot of people still refer to it as a Surface phone, and I kind of get that. It can make phone calls and it can do text messaging, but it's not a phone. It's not really meant to replace your phone. It's also not a tablet, but it can kind of replace your tablet if you want it to. It's an all-new device. It is a foldable journal that fits in your pocket. It is literally Microsoft Courier 2018. That is the origins of this device. I think that's super important to remember when you think about its usage. And there are things this device will be able to do that Microsoft has teased before, but we haven't actually seen implemented in a real device. And there's going to be, I think, a lot of cool things that this thing will enable people to do. Will it be good for you? Well, that's a different story. Again, going back to my examples of a pager or a smartphone or a PDA back in the day, I didn't really need any of those devices, but I was pretty excited to have it, and I figured out new ways to integrate them into my life. I think it's going to be the same situation here with this device. Now, I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. I'm not saying there's going to be a slam dunk. Obviously, user experience is going to be a huge thing. They could create the most awesome device in the world, but if the OS sucks or it's not fun to use or gets bad battery life, obviously, it's not going to do very well. There's also, of course, the app question and what you can do on this, but this is a pen-driven device. It's meant for note-taking. It's meant for 3D creation, basically scanning things and putting it into the device. It's meant for manipulation of photos and images and creating on the go. And yeah, it's also basically a pocket PC. It can make phone calls. It can do all sorts of cool things. But whether or not that actually affects you remains to be seen. And the reason I like talking about this stuff is because as I've been seeing more about what this device does, I'm thinking to myself, do I need this device? And of course, I'm going to get one. I mean, I'm going to review it. That's my job. But that's beside the point. I review a lot of things that I also don't use all the time either. But And thinking about this device, I'm curious. I don't know how this will actually fit into my daily life, but I'm excited about the opportunities and things it'll allow me to do. For instance, my handwriting is terrible. So am I going to actually enjoy writing on this thing? I don't know. I think that's a real big takeaway here. And I just want you guys all to step back. You're living in an amazing time for mobile technology. And this doesn't have to do with just Microsoft. This is Apple, this is Google, this is Amazon. Everybody is doing really amazing work here in this field. And it doesn't matter what team you believe in, it's just cool stuff. And if you don't step back and appreciate what's actually happening, what's going to be happening in the next 5 years, well, you really should, because this is amazing stuff. This is things I've been thinking about and hoping to happen ever since my first PDA, the Dell Axum I had years ago. When I got that, I literally thought it was a pocket PC, and it wasn't. But now we're kind of on the cusp of all this stuff coming true, and I kind of think it's awesome. So we'll have to wait and see what Microsoft actually delivers. I'm super curious about the messaging and how they're going to sell this device. But let's just take a step back and appreciate it. And if it's a new device category, you're going to have to give it some room to breathe. Remember, not everybody had a smartphone in 2007, but today, things are very different. Okay, that does it for this week's rant. Now, if you want more on this topic, join us for our Windows Central podcast every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on mixer.com/Windows Central. And you can even ask us questions during the podcast, which is always a lot of fun. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody. All right, for this week's Dan's rant, Dan rant? Or my rant? Should I just say my rant? Okay.